Hi, my name is Eric Olson, Director of HELPS. This brief video is going to talk about common misinformation that is given to seniors, usually on the internet, in articles, and sometimes in person, about seniors' finance, especially lower income seniors. And hopefully I'll get the major ones down here. I've been an attorney for 40 years, filed probably 40 or 50,000 bankruptcies. And I'm the director of a law firm that helps seniors to stop collectors from harassing them and also educate them how they can maintain their financial independence. So I deal with these issues all day long, read articles on the internet, and hear what clients have told me they've been told. So the most important piece of misinformation that is out there is that seniors aren't often given the information that their income is protected and can't be garnished or taken from them. Federal law protects Social Security. It can't be garnished. Okay, neither can a pension, disability, or VA benefits. It's protected, and seniors simply don't know this. They'll talk to a debt resolution or debt settlement company, and they won't tell them it. They'll sign them up instead, sometimes putting a senior in little poverty, making a monthly payment they can't pay for old debt that they can't afford to pay. And they never bother to tell them, by the way, your income is protected. It can't be taken from you. It's frankly shameful. I hope it's not because they intentionally do it. I hope it's out of ignorance. And there's a lot of articles that are written about, paying debt that fail to mention the fact that seniors' income is protected and can't be taken from them. Okay, another big piece of misinformation is anything to do with reverse mortgages. There's a lot of negative articles about reverse mortgages. I see them all the time. Some of them are written by attorneys that just don't know what they're talking about. Reverse mortgages have a long history. They've been around since 1986. They have evolved. There was some problems in the past, but those have been essentially cleaned up. Reverse mortgages are not that easy to get anymore. There's pretty tight restrictions. But if a person can qualify for a reverse mortgage and needs one, then they could be a godsend, allow you and your wife to stay in your home for the rest of your life without having to make a payment. But a lot of the articles or things I read nowadays are based on reverse mortgages that were given maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago when rules were different, or people didn't comply with the regulations. And so essentially what they're doing is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They're saying, well, this bad thing happened in this case and that case and this case. Therefore, all reverse mortgages are terrible and bad. They fail to point out the fact that people were notified of these requirements when they did it. And most of these people, the examples they give, these people would have had to left their home 15, 10, 20 years ago because they would no way could they afford to stay in the home. So you need to be careful about reading an article about reverse mortgages. If it's all negative, you need to get some really straight education on that, because a lot of people that writing these articles or posting things on the internet simply do not know what they're talking about. Okay, now let's talk about garnishment. So a lot of times seniors are worried about garnishment. I've already explained that their income is protected. Another thing that needs to be made, that's left out a lot of these articles, is that money in your bank account is protected from garnishment, into which Social Security is deposited. The rule specifically is this: twice the amount of Social Security you receive is protected from garnishment in a bank account into which the Social Security is electronically deposited, up to twice the amount of the monthly Social Security, no matter what funds are in there at that time. So if you get $1,500 in Social Security each month, then $3,000 in that bank account is protected from garnishment and can't be taken from you. And the articles also fail to point out that sometimes if you're garnished and you had more than that in there, you can file a claim of exemption or challenge the garnishment to get the money back. But it's really difficult for seniors to be garnished. Now, here's another thing that there's a lot of misinformation about. Debt consolidation companies, they'll often tell seniors that, or get them involved in debt consolidation, making a payment they simply can't afford to pay on past debt without telling the senior that their income is protected. I've seen seniors with incomes of like $1,100 paying $300 a month, and they have $500 in rent. They're paying $300 to a debt consolidation company to pay some old credit card debt. And whenever I ask any of these seniors that are involved with a debt consolidation company, by the way, were you ever told that your income is protected and that can't be taken from you? Invariably, virtually every time, the answer is no, they never did mention that. So that's a huge piece of misinformation that's given to seniors. Another important thing is past due taxes. Seniors, there's a lot of misinformation about if seniors owe past due taxes. Let me talk about the IRS first. IRS can garnish 15% of a person's Social Security. I don't see them garnishing pensions or disability benefits or other forms of retirement income. They usually just leave it to Social Security at 15%. Before they do that, they're going to give you a notice and tell you that what they intend to do. And articles have talked about the IRS taking your Social Security, but they never mention that there's a way to prevent that. For a large, at least half seniors have incomes within 200% of the poverty line, and they can qualify for non-collectible now status with the IRS, so they don't have to pay anything. And on top of that, there's state tax collectors. Articles that talk about seniors and state tax collectors, or state taxes that are owed, never mention that, by the way, the state tax collector cannot take your Social Security, your pension, disability, VA benefits. Cannot be garnished from you. They can garnish a refund, but as far as them taking your Social Security or your disability or your other, retirement income, no, they cannot do that. Okay? Incidentally, all these topics are talked about at our website with articles and hopefully on other YouTube videos in this video. So that talks about that. Now, what other common things or misinformation is given to seniors? Actually, there's a whole lot. In fact, today I read an article from some legal aid organization, I think, in the Northeast. And I went into detail about how the seniors could have their property taken and sold from them. And I went into detail about, this person had a car that was $10,000 free and clear, and the exemption in that state was $2,500 that the lender could take their car and sell it for $10,000, pay them their exemption of $2,500 or whatever it was, and maybe the exemption was $7,500, and they'd have $2,500 to pay towards their debt. Okay. Yeah, there's the law and there's what happens in real life. Okay. In 40 years of practice and 40 or 50,000 bankruptcies, I've seen a judgment creditor go after a car that was free and clear, maybe 2 times, and if I remember right, it was the same collection agency. It just doesn't happen. Why? There's a complicated procedure for a creditor to do that. It's not like a lender that has the title to a car that can simply repossess it, but a judgment creditor has to get rid of, they have to get rid of assistance from the sheriff. They have to go through a whole legal proceeding, probably pay a bond. It's expensive for them to do it. And so as a practical matter, it's just not done. They're not going to go after a person's personal property. But yet I read lots of articles that put the fear of God in seniors, thinking that, gee, if I don't pay this debt and someone gets a judgment, they're going to come and take my property out of my house. Just as a practical matter, it just doesn't happen. Okay? Once again, I've got articles. Helps has articles on our website, www.helpsishere.org, that talks more about this. Any senior that has a question about these issues can always call us, toll free 855-435-7787. Our specific purpose is to protect seniors from collector harassment. We don't turn anyone away. but we also want to educate seniors about their financial rights. So I can't think of any other off the top of my head of common things that you misread, but I guarantee you there's probably just as many more out there. There's just a lot of total misinformation. And I'll just close by this, okay? A lot of these articles are written by maybe younger attorneys, just out of law school, maybe people that aren't attorneys, that hear things or read the law, and they add up 1 and 1 and they come up with 30, or 2 and 2 and they come up with 4 maybe. But there's a difference between, there's what happens in real life or practicality, and then what the law is. Okay, so yeah, it is possible that you could drive out of your car tomorrow afternoon and get hit by a drunk driver, but we don't live our lives that way. So a lot of these possibilities that I read about in these articles, based on the so-called law, is, they fail to mention that, this isn't going to happen, and if it did, there's be this way to cure the problem. But instead, they just talk about the fact that you're going to get hit by you could get hit by a drunk driver tomorrow, and do we stop driving because of that possibility? Absolutely not. Yet sometimes I think when I read these articles, I'm worried seniors are just given the misconception that this is going to happen because the article says that. So a word to the wise. Don't believe everything you read, and hopefully this has been helpful.